Once again, welcome you all for the model number 16, that is design of shaft. Learning outcomes for this today's session. This session is what is a shaft. We're going to learn. What is the function of the shaft, then the types of the shafts, the axle, the difference between the axle and the shaft. That thing we are going to study it in detail. Applications of the shafts, materials used in the shafts, and then the designing of the shaft. The function of the shaft is to transfer the power, right? It is used to transmit power, that is torque, from one shaft to the another shaft through the connected keys and pulleys, right? So actually, if you take the shaft, practically if you see it, whatever the available shaft, that is the shaft design shafts, are usually it is of stepped shaft. The middle portion you will have a larger diameter, and as it goes to the end where the bearing comes, so there the diameter will be less. So because of fixing of the pulleys or the bearings and the weight of the pulleys, that the bending moment, so the diameters will be different in different sections. So depending upon the sections, we have to go for the diameters. So with the stepped shaft, we are having the advantage will be there. There's a lesser bending stress will be developed, and you will also provision of having. We can make this one, that is for holding the devices in a proper way. So the rounded off portion between the two cross sections of different diameters is called a fillet. So when you make a stepped shaft, so generally, so you are getting the very sharp corners at that point. So the fillet radius, we have to provide a fillet radius so that the stress concentration will be reduced. So here it is shown here stepped shaft. So these are the keys there in the shaft. So that means here there may be an overhang pulley is here, and there may be a gear or a different pulley is there, and it is supported at this bearing with this at this point as well as at this point. So the diameter will be larger at this point, and it will be less here because this is a design of the shaft based on only torque, and whereas here this is the bend at this section the design is based on bending moment as well as the torque. So now we will go for the types of shafts. The first one is the axle. Axle is nothing but a supportive member. It rotates a very slow RPM around less than 5 or 4. So you can say it is an axle. Okay. So an axle is used in the shaft to support a rotating element like wheels. So wheels of a bicycle or wheels of a bike, they are mounted on the axle. Or the hoisting drums, the rope sheaves, so they are all mounted on the axle. And these axles are held in a bearings. So this drum, it rotates through the bearing, right? So whereas the axle, it is a supportive member. It takes only the bending load. So in the examination or in the interview, they may ask what is the difference between the axle and the shaft. In general, axle is subjected to the bending moment due to the transverse load like bearing reactions, and it does not transfer any useful torque. Only it will transfer what bending load, and from this bending load, whatever you are getting the load on the shaft or the axle, it will transfer through the bearing to the ground. So like this, it transmits only the reactions. It takes the supportive, it acts as a supporting member. Okay. An axle may rotate with a wheel or simply support a rotating wheel. The spindle. Say a spindle is a short rotating shaft. The term spindle originates from the round tapering stick on a spinning wheel on which the thread is twisted. Okay, so the spindles are used in all machine tools, such as a small drive shaft of a lathe or the spindle of a drilling machine. So the drilling machine, in the drilling machine, the spindle you are fitting up the tool bit. So that is called the spindle. Okay, so the spindle is a short rotating shaft. It is not a stationary shaft. It is a rotating shaft. Okay, so the counter shafts. So it is a secondary shaft. The primary shaft is one which transfers the motion to the secondary, which is driven by the main shaft. The secondary shaft is one which drives the main shaft. That means counter shaft, it drives by the main shaft, from which the power is supplied to the machine component. Often the counter shaft is driven with the main shaft by means of a pair of spur or helical gears, or thus rotates counter to the direction of the main shaft. Counter shafts are used in multi-stage gearboxes. So wherever the multi-stage gearbox is there, so in that case, the gears are mounted on one shaft and the other gears are mounted on different. So like a set of shaft, main shaft, counter shafts will be there. So it is a multi-stage gearbox. So if it is there, in the reduction of the gears you can get it. So in the automobiles you can automobile gearbox assembly you can see this type of counter shafts, the gearboxes. So a jack shaft is an auxiliary intermediate shaft between the two shafts that are used to transmit the power. It is a function the same as that of the counter shaft. So line shaft. A line shaft is one in which the two shafts are connected in single line. It's an axial. So if a shaft is transmitting, generally a shaft has got a length of around 6 to 7 meters, you will get it. Okay. So one shaft, if it is connected to I cannot get a 10-meter shaft directly, right? Because of the transportation, I can get only what is the length of that one, 7. In the special thing, you can manufacture those things according to need. But generally, what the commercial shafts which are available in the market, they are of around 7 meters. So if this one, if it's connected with another one in the coaxial way, so that is called line shafting. It is connected through by means of coupling, and wherever the couplings are used, and we have to use the bearings, right? So bearings are there, and then the couplings, then only we can transfer the okay. So materials, now we will go for what are the different materials used in the shaft. So material generally we are going for the plain carbon steels also you can use it, or a little bit higher alloy steels are also used. So wherever you need more strength, so in that case we can go for higher strength material for the shaft. It must be around more than 600 Newton per mm square or 600 megapascal. Okay. So the carbon content from is 15% to 40%. More will be the carbon percent, more will be the tensile strength of the material. Okay. So if it exceeds over, then it becomes a brittle. So that's why we should be very careful while we are taking, that is a 0.15% we are talking. I am not saying 15%. It is 0.15 to 0.4%, such as 30C8 and 40C8. These steels are commonly used in machinery steels. So where the greater strength is required, in that case we can go for 50C8. That means here 0.5%. That is 0.45 to 0.55% of carbon. Okay, these are the alloy steels we can employ it. So alloy steels like include nickel, chromium. So if I use a chromium, that means you can increase the corrosion resistance to the molybdenum. The strength of the material will increase, hardness will also increase. Manganese, by using manganese in that. Okay, so molybdenum, it is a steel with a higher this one. So common grade alloy steels used making in transmission of shafts like 16 Mn, 5 Cr, chromium is 4, manganese is 5%, 60.16 percentage of carbon, and the other is 0.5 and 0.4% of manganese and chromium, like that. Okay, so these are the alloyed steels we are using for different shaft materials. So because of the alloyed steel, that cost of that material will also increase. One has to see, the designer must have to see these things. So depending upon the application and the requirement, the design engineer should use the material, right? So suppose if you are designing a shaft in an aeroplane, so in that case we have to go for the material which has got a higher strength to weight ratio. That means the strength should be more and the weight should be less. So that is higher strength to weight ratio. That ratio should be higher. So the titanium, if I use it, so that will be more that, but it becomes a costlier, right? So as you go at higher range, the material it becomes more costly. So alloy steels are costly compared with the plain carbon steels. However, alloy steels have higher strength, hardness, and toughness. So, say for example, you are using a shaft which is used in the gas turbine or steam turbine plant. So, turbine shaft. So, in that case, we have to go for the higher strength and the hardness and toughness of material, so that it should resist the temperature, right? So that's why, so higher melting point, you should have a higher melting point. So all these things we have to see it. Okay, so these alloy steels, so that's why we are going for the alloy steels. By adding these steels, we can change the property of the material. So this type of generally, this what I said is, in general we can say that plain carbon steels or medium carbon steels we are using it, and little bit higher than that we can use even 50 CH, that is the percentage of higher carbon steels, and then we will go for the alloy steels wherever the requirement is more. So like this a material for the shaft, and material for the key is also same. If you are using the same, it is thing is that we have to the same material we are using for the key also, right? So now then we will go for the principal stress equation for biaxial stress. So just to have that one, that means what is the principal stress equation for an element subjected to the biaxial stress. So this is sigma 1 is in x direction, and sigma 2 you take it in y direction, and let us say sigma z component is 0. That means this element is subjected to the biaxial loading. So here we are studying biaxial stress sigma 1 and sigma 2. So the principal stress equation, we are studying principal stress equation because the shafts are subjected to the combined loading. So wherever combined loading is there, so in that case, so that should be checked with the principal stress equation. So there the individual workout of tensile or bending or pure torsion, it will not work out for the design. So because it may, if it satisfies in bending, it may fail in shear. So it happens. So because of that, we are using principal stress equation. So for that, biaxial stress sigma 1 and sigma 2, as I said it. So these are the in x and z direction, it is shown here. So let us say this is the Mohr circle diagram. For this is the principal stress and this is the shear stress. So here I can go for the sigma 1 is that, sigma 2 is the minimum stress. So you can take principal stress maximum and this is sigma 2. So by taking this sigma 1 minus sigma 2, I can get the center of that and then draw the circle, you will get the maximum shear stress. So with the help of the Mohr circle, we can get what is the sigma maximum and sigma minimum. It is nothing but sigma 1 plus sigma 2 upon 2 plus or minus under root sigma 1 minus sigma 2 square plus tau xy square, where tau xy is the tangential distortion. So that I have not shown here. So that part we have to show it. So that is a maximum shear stress is equal to sigma maximum minus sigma minimum by 2. So and then tau maximum is equal to under root of sigma 1 minus 2 by 2 plus square plus tau xy square. So this is with the biaxial. So generally for at the diploma level or this one, so you can go for, if you are going for only principal stress equations. So in that case, sigma 2, you just put it 0 and that is the principal stress you are going to get. So sigma maximum and sigma minimum is equal to sigma 1 upon 2 plus or minus under root sigma 1 upon 2 square plus tau xy square. So shafts are subjected to the combined loading, right? Like axial, eccentric, torque or the bending moment separately or in combination with different loads. See, this is I am showing here a shaft which is supported in between the two bearings. There is a pulley over here. It is subjected to a torque. So the pulley has got a weight and then it having the tension that's right T1 and T2. If it is rotating in this direction, T1 is the tight side and T2 is the slack side. So then if WB is the weight of the pulley, so then the total weight which is acting in the downward direction is T1 plus T2. That is the weight of the tensions plus weight of the pulley. So it acts over here. So let us say that is W is equal to that one and this W is acting at this point. Assume that this is at the middle portion. So in that case, the reaction you will get is R by 2, that is W by 2 and W by 2 of this. So you will get a bending moment also. So what I am telling is, so this is subjected to the bending moment as well as torque. So for that, the strength equation, just I am going to derive that equation. Consider the shaft is subjected to the moment due to the torque M. Considering bending moment is equal to 32 MB upon pi d cube, you are going to get it, and that is equal to how we will get this one, that is sigma b upon c. Sigma b upon c is equal to mb upon I, rectangular momentum of inertia, and by substituting I is equal to pi d 4 by 64 and c is equal to d by 2 in that equation, I can get what is sigma b. And considering torque, also you can get tau s upon c is equal to mt upon j, where j is the polar momentum of inertia. And using that fundamental equation, I can get tau s is equal to 16 mt upon pi d cube. So sigma maximum or minimum is equal to sigma 1 upon 2 plus or minus under root sigma 1 upon 2 square plus tau s square. So here, this is for sigma 2 is 0. There is no, it's not biaxial, it is, we are just taking uniaxial. For uniaxial, so sigma 1 upon 2, where sigma 1, it is the sum of the two things. One is the plus or minus axial plus or minus bending. So because both are normal stresses, so we can add it. right? So this is a normal stress. This is also normal stress. That is a, if it is a one is a compressive and tensile, it is subtracted. If it is a both are tensile, you can add it. So, but you will get a linear this one. That is an, you are not going to get a triangular law. You should not apply it here, right? If the things are vectors in the upward and downward direction, like one is horizontal and another one is vertical, in that case, it is sum of the uh, hypotenuse of that, it will become the resultant. So for this case, the axial load is 0. In this case, there is no axial load, so hence it is 0. So only bending will be there, plus or minus 32 MB upon pi dq. Okay. So tau maximum shear stress is equal to sigma 1 upon 2 plus tau s square. So this should come less than the allowable. This should come less than the permissible. So that's how we are going to use it. So now when you substitute these values, you can modify that equation further. Okay, where sigma 1 is equal to this, yeah, I already said it. Sigma t is equal to 0, sigma b is equal to mb into c upon I, right? So this is the bending stress equation, this is the tau s equation. So we have to put it in that sigma maximum, which is equal to sigma b upon 2. So sigma b upon 2 is nothing but 32 upon 2 is 16. So like this, here it is sigma b upon 2 square, that is 16 mb upon pi d cube square. Okay, plus tau, this tau s, that is 16 mt upon pi d cube square. So taking that value, so 16 by pi d cube, it is common here. This is square, 16 by pi d cube square. If I take it outside, it is 16 by pi d cube. So that I can take it common, which is into bracket mb plus under root mb square plus mb square. Okay, this is for sigma maximum. Similarly, we can get for the sigma minimum. Okay, so this is for the sigma minimum. Here it will be minus. So that indicates that this is plus, that is compressive. This is compressive and this is tensile. So there is no change in the magnitude. Always we have to go for the maximum, whether it is in tensile or whether it is in compressive. Yes. So, and then maximum shear stress is equal to under root sigma 1 upon 2 square plus tau xy square, or it is sigma maximum minus sigma minimum upon 2. If you do it, you are going to get this equation, that is under root of sigma 1 upon 2, that is 16 mb upon pi d cube square plus 16 mb upon pi d cube square. So 16 pi d cube, you take it common. So then this will be the bracket under root mb square plus mb square. So this indicates just like a torque, 16 by pi d cube into torque, right? So that's why this is called equivalent torque. In some of the books, they are referred as equivalent torque. It is TE or MT equivalent. Okay, so torque equivalent in the shaft is nothing but under root mb square plus mt square. So similarly, torque equivalent for the tensile stress is equal to, so this one. So any one thing we can use it to find out the diameter, either it is a tensile or shear. Okay. So in actual practice, the shafts are subjected to the fluctuating torque and bending moment. In order to design such shafts, such as the line shafts and counter shafts, the combined shock and fatigue factors we have to consider. There is a large amount of fluctuation is there. Whenever there is a fluctuation, right? When it is transmitting through the engine, just flywheel, it stores the energy in the power stroke and the given. There is a fluctuation of energy will be there. So the torque will fluctuate. So when such a fluctuation is there, we have to design that shaft by means of combined shock and fatigue factors. So that means we have to add KB and KT factors. KB is for combined and shock factor for bending, and KT, it is for the combined shock and fatigue factor for the torque. So generally these values are more than 1. As per the ASME code equation, we have to multiply it. We have to multiply with the load, right? If anything, with your multiplying with the load, always it should be more than 1. If you are multiplying with the stress, it should be less than 1. So in order to design anything, so a factor, if you want to design for the stress, so that stress value, when you are designing for more dimension, stress value should be having less value, whereas the load, it should be designed for the higher loads. So ASME code equation for the shaft, in that case, considering KB and KT values, so just you multiply KB into MB. Usually it is 1.5. Okay, KB factor is 1.5 and KT factor is 1, or for higher this one you can 2.5, like that you can get it. Okay, so generally KB is larger than KT factor. So sigma maximum is equal to this, it should be less than permissible tensile. Okay, so where TE, as I said, it is called torque equivalent in bending or tensile. Okay, so similarly I can get the torque equivalent in shear. It is nothing but under root KB MB square plus KT MT square, where KB and KT are the shock and combined shock and fatigue factors. So generally it is more than 1. Okay. So normally that it is taken from the book. You can have this one, that is a KM. It is a KB factor, and this is KT factor. Stationary shaft. For stationary shaft, it is 1 and 1 for this KB and KT. Whereas suddenly applied, it is 1.5 to 2. And rotating shaft with the gradually applied, suddenly applied, gradually applied is 1.5 for the KB and 1 for the KT. Suddenly applied 1.5 to 2, 1.5 to 2. And for suddenly applied with heavy loads, if it is there, in that case we have to take 2 to 3 and 1.5 to 3. So as per the data we have to do it. In the problem, if the data are there, then you do it. Otherwise, if you are doing a case study and you are designing anything, so in that case accordingly we have to assume these data. Are you getting it? So it depends upon the data, what they are in the examination or something, where if you want to do it, the answers for that. So you just go with the data. If the data are available, so you can take that available data and do it. So no need of assuming anything. If it is needed, sometimes some data are important, data are missing. In that case, I have to consider. Are you getting it? So it, as per the ASME code equation, these are the KM and that's KB and KT factors, so that it can be, you can use it in the equation, strength equation for the tensile, and the strength equation of the shaft for the torque. Okay. So now we will go for the ASME code shafting for the other thing, that is when the commercial shafting and when the shaft is specified. So ASME stands for American Society of Mechanical Engineers. So they have given certain codes for the design of shaftings for the commercial and when the material is specified. Say for the commercial shaftings, so you can take 112 MPa for the shaft without allowance for the keyway. This is the allowable tensile stress. Okay, and this is with allowable keyways, with allowable tensile stress for the shaft without with keyways, and this is with keyway. That is 84 MPa. That is for working stress, that is tensile stress. Okay, sigma T, tensile permissible 112 for without keyway, and with keyway if it is there, it should be, we have to go for 84 MPa. Okay, and for the shaft purchased under a definite physical specification. For example, you have taken 45 C8. Okay, for that specific material, they will give generally what is yield strength and ultimate strength. If they given the yield strength and ultimate strength, and if they specified it, and how to find out the tensile, is this thing we have to use it. That is, sigma T is equal to 60% of yield strength, 60% of yield strength, or it is 36% of ultimate, whichever is less. So whichever is the less value, that value I have to use it. So either it is 60% of yield point or 36% of ultimate, whichever is the less value. So that value, using that value, you have to design the shaft for tensile, right? So now we will go for the ASME code shaftings for the finding outputs for the shear stress. If the permissible shear stress, if you want to assume it for a commercial shafting, so in that case you can go for 56 MPa for the shaft without keyway. If you provide a keyway is there in the shaft, so then the strength becomes less. So that's why we have to give more allowance. So that's why it is taken. It should be designed for 42 MPa. Okay, so 42 MPa. It is for without with keyway, and 56 MPa it is for with keyway for assuming allowable shear stress. So now allowable shear stress for a specified, when the material is specified, so in that case for a specific material it is given as 30% of yield point. The allowable shear stress may be taken as 30% of yield strength, or it is 18% of ultimate strength, whichever is less. Okay, further this value, it should be reduced by 25%. It should be reduced by 25%. Okay, so we have to take 30% of yield point or 18% of ultimate given, and then whichever is the less value you are going to get, for that value should be reduced by 25%, or else you multiply that value by 0.75. So that is nothing but the allowable stress for the shaft having keyway. Without keyway is there, so in that case you can take it directly, whichever is the less value which comes, so that value will be used as an allowable shear stress for without keyway. Okay, so now similarly, as we did for the design for the solid shaft, we will go for the hollow shaft, subjected to the bending and torque. Let d1 is di is the inside diameter and d0 is the outside diameter of the hollow shaft. So then K is equal to di by d0. It is the ratio of inside diameter to the outside. Bending stress is equal to MB is equal to sigma MB into C upon I, and C is equal to d0 by 2. And here moment of inertia will change. So that is a moment of inertia is pi by 64, d0 raised to 4 minus di raised to 4. So in the solid we have to remove the hollow, that is the moment of inertia for the solid shaft minus moment of inertia for the hollow. So that is pi d0 raised to 4 by 64 upon pi di raised to 4 upon 64. To do it, you can take pi d0 4 by 64, d0 4, if I take it common, so then it will be 1 minus k raised to 4. So this thing you have to remember it. Only in the solid shaft we are using d raised to 4, whereas in the hollow shaft if it comes, so it is d0 raised to 4 multiplied by 1 minus k raised to 4, where k is inside by outside diameter. That is the ratio of that. So similarly, sigma b bending stress you can calculate with this. So you just put the value of these things over here, and I can get here 32 MB upon pi d0 q into 1 minus k raised to 4. If it is a solid shaft, so instead of d naught cube, what you will get d cube, and 1 minus k raised to 4, where di by d naught, you will have that value. This will not be, will be 0 here, right? There is no inside diameter or outside diameter hollow shaft. If it is a hollow shaft, k will be there. If it is a solid shaft, this is not there. So in that case, it will be d raised to cube. You will get here denominator. You will get d raised to cube. So torsional shear stress is equal to tau s is equal to mt into c upon j. C is equal to d naught by 2. J is polar momentum of inertia. It is twice of I. If you multiply twice of this thing here, what you will get is pi by 32 into d naught raised to 4 into 1 minus k raised to 4, right? So using these values, we can put it in the equation. So this is for tau s, allowable shear stress. What is the value you will get is 16 mt upon pi d naught cube into 1 minus k raised to 4. So in the maximum principal stress equation for the hollow shaft, you can put the sigma maximum minimum values of this. So here this axial stress is 0, bending will be there, and shear will be there. Okay, so you can take this is pi d naught cube into 1 minus k raised to 4 here. Is pi d naught cube into 1 minus k raised to 4, 16 divided by that, 32. So these values I have to put it in the equation of sigma t maximum, sigma 1 upon 2. It is nothing but sigma b upon 2. Okay, you will get this 16 by pi d naught cube into 1 minus k raised to 4. So here also it is square of that. So you can take out this as a common here, that if I take 16 by pi d naught cube into 1 minus k raised to 4 common, so the left amount, the left value will be bracket of mb plus under root mb square plus mt square. So similarly for maximum shear stress, so here you are going to get sigma 1 upon 2 plus tau xy square. So again you put the value of sigma 1 and tau value, and you take the common 16 by pi d naught cube into 1 minus k raised to 4 under root mb square plus mt square. So these are the equation. These are the equation for the hollow shaft. And here, if you multiply with the kb and kt values, if I kb into mb and kb mb square plus kt mt square, and similarly here for the tau maximum, this same amount 16 by pi d naught cube into 1 minus k raised to 4 under root kb mb square plus kt mt square if you use it. So then those are nothing but the ASME code equation without any axial load. Here I have not considered axial load. We have taken only tensile, bending and torsion, right? So the difference between the solid and the hollow shaft, what we are getting is, in the solid shaft, this value d naught cube into 1 minus k raised to 4, it is replaced by d cube. The value will remain same, right, in the sigma t maximum. And for the hollow shaft, maximum shear stress will be 16 upon pi, again d naught raised to cube into 1 minus k raised to 4 is replaced by d cube for the solid. Okay, so you can get some interesting questions on the hollow shaft and solid shaft to find out what is the stiffness of a hollow shaft, compare the weight of hollow and solid like this. So try to solve these problems. You can use Bhandari, or you can refer to me, no problem, or Sean's outline book, and try to solve, get the problems based on the ASME code equation. So try to solve this basic equation, you have to use it. And one more thing based on the rigidity will be there, so that I will take it in the coming session. So in conclusion, keeping in view to enhance the life of the machine component, discussions are made on the functions and type of the shaft and its application. Since the shaft is subjected to the combined loading, the design of shaft should be based on principal stress equation. So here we are not designing the shaft based purely on bending or purely on shear, because the shaft is subjected to the combined loading, hence it should be checked for its principal stress equation, and using the ESME code equation for the shaftings. So we have to design, right? So I think this is sufficient for you people. So thank you.